Hi, my name is Olivier, and for the past 3 years, I've been working full time on developing my dream workout game from scratch. This eventually turned into a bunch of mini games that you control entirely by exercising on your home trainer. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start from the beginning. Cycling is awesome. You could even make the case for it being the best sport to get in shape and stay healthy. Well, until you almost get hit by a car, and although near-death experiences are kind of exciting, they really feel counterproductive to the whole improving your health thing. Luckily, home trainers are a great way to take the health benefits of outdoor cycling and combine them with the safety of not having to leave your house. Although exercising on a home trainer sounds fantastic in theory, in reality it feels more like watching paint dry. Therefore, a lot of companies offer different ways to make indoor cycling more engaging, and a lot of these products are seriously great. I love being able to train like a professional athlete from the comfort of my home, although many indoor cycling apps make me kind of feel like a slightly chubby imposter to a world of superbikes that cost more than my car. I wanted to explore new ways to make indoor cycling fun. That's why I made an app that uses gamification to trick my brain into thinking I'm just playing a cool exercise game, while in reality I'm almost drowning in my own sweat. This is the story of how I built Startona, the indoor cycling game where you need to burn real calories to win. Pew 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 pew! This is me leaving work after I quit to develop my dream workout game. No more regular income, private healthcare, pension saving. What a great idea. At this point in time, I'd been the head of the interaction design department at a local college for almost 12 years. And to be honest, I love teaching, but after watching hundreds of students pass through and going on to do great things, I started to become a bit restless. I was looking for a new challenge in life. It was time for an adventure. A couple of years prior to me quitting my job, I injured my foot quite badly, and because of immobility, the injury developed into a blood clot that required medical attention. In the hospital, they prescribed me medication and told me to get some regular exercise to increase the blood flow and help my body recover faster. I started exercising on this old home trainer, and as my leg healed, I added some high-intensity intervals to my workout. I really got into cycling and I loved how effective it was. I soon bought a racing bike and I started to regularly ride outside, although as the next winter rolled around, my old home trainer started to really feel like a joke. That's when I decided that I needed to up my indoor cycling game and invest in a smart trainer. A smart trainer is basically a home trainer you can control from your computer. They come in different shapes and sizes, but for most people the direct drive trainers are probably the best option since you can put your bike onto them. They also offer a far superior experience compared to wheel-on trainers. When I first heard about smart trainers, it sounded like my dream training device. A high-end ergometer bike that could measure my power, speed and cadence. And the best thing was that I could download all these different training apps for it. I could finally train like a professional cyclist all year long. The first training app I used was called the Sufferfest, which contains various structured workouts and training plans. I also liked that they celebrated the fact that indoor cycling feels a lot like torture. Later on, I started using an app called Swift that featured a virtual world where you could train, ride and compete with other athletes. Although I quickly discovered that being big and heavy meant that I was gonna get my ass kicked all the time, especially by riders pretending to weigh the same as a 5-year-old. After having tried many different cycling apps, it soon struck me that most of them provided very similar experiences. They were either simulating outdoor cycling by putting the player in a virtual world, providing structured workouts with a video overlay, or they would allow you to take part in virtual spinning classes. Of course, this makes a lot of sense since most people who buy a smart trainer are serious cyclists who want to stay in shape during the winter months or train in a safe and controlled environment. But I was still wondering, where was the WarioWare or the Wii Sport of indoor cycling? As a game designer, I felt that there was this huge ocean of possibility, yet all the app developers were kind of hanging out in the same spot. That's when the idea struck me. I was gonna build an indoor cycling game that would allow me to explore different weird and crazy game ideas and share them with the world. Kind of like the Marco Polo of indoor cycling. At the very least, I would end up with a training app I could use to trick my kids to get into cycling. Although making games is a dream job, It's also really hard and it takes a lot of time. That's why I start off by defining some overarching requirements for the project to help me stay on course. The game must contain fun and effective fitness games for both non-cyclists and serious endurance athletes. I want to build a game engine that enables rapid prototyping and allows for easy integration of new content. The game should provide systems for fitness tracking and generate detailed workout histories players can share on Strava. Knowing that I'm going to be able to show off to my friends is about 99% of my motivation. There also needs to be an affordable subscription model, allowing for future development without ads. And lastly, I want there to be a single code base that is both scalable and works for most systems. After some deliberation, I decided that the first version was going to be a web app. Okay, before the hardcore game developers go bananas in the comment section, let me please explain why in this case building a web app actually makes a lot of sense. I know that web games have a bit of a bad reputation compared to AAA games. But if we look at the game's requirements, going for a web-first approach actually provides a lot of upsides. That's also why a lot of very popular apps nowadays are built on top of web technologies. There are, however, a couple of downsides with this approach as well, with the biggest challenge being performance. Lucky for us, we can fix this by using some of the same tricks people used back in the day when computers were a lot less powerful. And since I want my workout game to have a similar aesthetic to a late 90s console game, performance should be manageable. To be honest, the pros far outweigh the cons. Time to find out what witchcraft is required to talk to this thing. No one that I know of has built a smart trainer implementation for web Bluetooth before, making it a bit scary to build an entire project on top of this technology. I will get seriously upset if I find out in a couple of months' time that I've spent all this time building a JavaScript game engine just to find out that there's some weird bug in the underlying web Bluetooth layer, causing the game to randomly disconnect from the trainer. Therefore, I quickly programmed a small library that would allow me to connect to various fitness sensors and control my trainer, so I could validate that part of the project. I have to admit that I love working this close to the hardware. It really makes me feel like I'm talking to the computer in the way that God intended. Once my initial experiments were done, I moved on to building a device manager component I could reuse in my game. I also made some components for other parts of the game's user interface, since I already was making good progress in this area. Pro tip: if you're new to JavaScript development and you wonder where to start, just learn basic vanilla JavaScript. Then try to avoid web frameworks at all costs. Life's too short. Finally, I had all the building blocks that I needed to start prototyping my first game idea. Yes! Let's go! Time for my favorite part of game development: prototyping. There is something very liberating about coming up with ideas knowing that you most likely are gonna throw them out again. The biggest challenge when it comes to thinking about new and unique game ideas for your indoor smart trainer is the fact that the trainer's input scheme is very limited. You can basically only control the speed, power, cadence. And the only feedback we can give the player is changing the resistance they need to overcome, meaning we can make it easier or harder to ride your bike. In a way, the smart trainer is a lot like the controller you would use on a slot car track. It's therefore very tempting to use additional inputs like game controllers or voice commands, or we could even add the steering plates, but they will all add complexity, making it harder for new players to set up and get into the game. I want users to be able to pick a workout and then only focus on the cycling, nothing else. Since I want the game to support serious workouts that are gonna be sweaty and hard, I don't want to add any VR headset either, since the glasses will just fog up and it will just become a bit of a mess. When prototyping, I generally start with just writing down a couple of game ideas in the form of keywords. Then I pick the idea I like best and spend more time working out the details. I generally just use pen and paper, but if you are working as a team, tools like Trello and Miro can be great options. Then I move on to drawing simple sketches for the different game ideas I like best, just to get a better feeling for what the idea might look like. Sketching also helps me explore concepts from various angles, and it helps me spot faults in my thinking. Once I have a couple of concepts I like, I create different prototypes to help me understand the details involved to make the idea work. I often start by creating low fidelity prototypes either in software or on paper to simulate how different aspects of the system respond to input. Almost like an interactive storyboard. If I really like a concept and I have a pretty good understanding of how I want it to work, I create a playable prototype. This is where you find out if you and your concept have a future together. I generally program these prototypes by hand in 2D since it's a lot faster than working in 3D. Although a game engine like Unreal has a lot of great tools that allows you to quickly prototype with very little code in 3D as well. For me, prototyping games is all about exploring a wide range of possibilities. It's not about being artsy or unique, it's really more about finding game ideas that I'm excited about trying out myself. In this case, I also need to think about how effective a game is as a workout. I mean, there's no point in sitting on your home trainer for 3 hours to burn 2 calories. If you want to learn techniques to develop ideas for your own game, then I highly recommend Jesse Schell's book, The Art of Game Design. Like I said earlier, a big part of prototyping is throwing away ideas. Since I could fill an entire video with all the different prototypes that never made it into the game, I decided to only cover the concepts that you can actually try if you go to startona.com. In my office, I have a copy of the children's book The Little Prince. While looking for inspiration, I came over it and thought that it would be cool to make a game where the little prince would ride his bicycle so fast around this tiny planet that he would shoot himself into space. I like this idea since it provides a unique gaming experience where players need to combine timing, speed and strategy. After a couple of days of programming, the game was ready for testing. Each planet's gravity is based on its size, so you will need to ride faster to jump from a big planet than a small one. While playtesting, I noticed that my trainer had a lot more input lag than I had expected. Although most modern smart trainers are very accurate when it comes to measuring your ride, they tend to take a little bit of time in between every update they send to the computer. Although nowadays some manufacturers offer something called race mode where they update around 10 times per second. Although the manufacturer of my smart trainer states on the website that the trainer will only send out updates around every second, I still wanted to devise a test so I could measure how much input latency players on average would experience in a real-world setting. On average, it takes around 800 to 900 milliseconds before the increase in input speed is registered by the computer. In comparison, a modern wireless gaming controller has a response time of around 10 milliseconds. This is not great, but luckily there's a lot we can do to compensate for it. First of all, we can put the planets closer together, giving the players a wider window in which they can jump. We can also add bounding boxes to objects like coins, allowing them to move towards the player if the player is close enough. Although it took me a couple of tries to get used to the controls, once I got the hang of it, it felt that the game was surprisingly fun. Especially shorter levels that you could complete within a couple of seconds were really fun when you tried to improve your old high score. I also made a longer level that would take around 5 minutes to complete. But this felt quite tedious, so I quickly scrapped that idea. If we analyze this game from a cycling workout point of view, we can see that it makes a pretty decent interval workout, although the sprints are very short. I ended up calling this game Cassini, after the exploration spacecraft that visited Saturn and many of its moons. During development, I worked with a small group of beta testers to get feedback on different aspects of the gameplay. Most of them felt that it was a bit difficult to understand the mechanics of this level, so I added text overlays to explain it better. This also led to me creating a separate tutorial level so new players could easily learn the basics of the game. It's time to evaluate my first workouts. I will try to give my honest opinion about the parts that I liked and what I didn't like so much about the Cassini levels. Here are some of the good parts. The game is quite fun as a quick challenge. It also works really well for short, punchy workouts. I also like that the gameplay is quite engaging and that it offers a unique workout experience. Here are some of the parts I didn't like so much. The main one is definitely the game's learning curve and the fact that input lag can be quite frustrating at times. Also, the fact that the game is not that suited for longer workouts means that it only can play a very small part in the overall workout structure. It's super important to me to get some honest feedback about how fun the games are to play. Therefore, I asked both the beta testers and my kids to rate the levels from 0 to 10. Let's see what they have to say. Well, you know what they say. Children and fools tell the truth about the indoor cycling workout game ideas. Time to take what I learned and see if I can make the next game more fun. A great feature of high latency games is the fact that they force you to plan ahead and carefully adjust your input. Some of my all-time favorite games, like Moonlander and Flight Simulator, make you wrestle with hard to control flying objects that have a lot of latency. One of my first sketches was for a game idea where you would need to fly a bird through a cave. In this game, the player would need to ride faster to go up and slower to go down. The aim of this level is really simple. You just need to find the fastest way out of the cave without crashing into a wall. One of the best parts about this level is the fact that the player themselves can decide which path they choose to get out of the cave, giving the player control of how challenging they want the level to be. The most difficult part for this game was to find the ideal control system for the bird. Let's say that an average player can easily ride at 15 km per hour and at this speed the bird would fly straight ahead. Now if the player increases their speed, we don't just want the bird to shoot up into the air. In this case it would be more appropriate if the bird first slowed down a little bit and then steadily increased its angle of ascent. After some back and forth, I found a model that I liked best since it rewarded players for holding a steady pace while also feeling quite responsive. I even added the multiplayer version so you could challenge your friends to see who's fastest. As a mediocre cyclist myself, I love the fact that levels like this are not all about being the strongest, but also about skill and persistency. Although I don't have much of that either. Levels that are based on this game are marked with a wormhole icon. Here's my verdict. I like the fact that players to a certain extent can decide how challenging they want the level to be. I also feel that the game engine allows me to design quite solid workouts. The game is quite easy to learn, although it takes a couple of tries, and the replayability factor is quite high. On the downside, you have to develop a bit of a feel for the game's physics, and if you die, you need to restart the level or move on to the next one. Time to ask my kids again for a score. Okay, at least we're going in the right direction. After making two very unique workout games, I wanted to challenge the king of indoor cycling. It's time to add a race mode. Most virtual indoor cycling games have one major flaw. They won't let you crash into other players and ruin their lap. It's time for somebody to fix that. I decided to create an arcade-style racing game where players can compete against AI opponents that are calibrated to match their abilities. So players can race at their own level whenever they want. In classic arcade racer fashion, the game will allow players to crash into each other or slide off the track if they take a corner too fast. However, the game should also support real bike racing strategies like drafting. A great part about this concept is the fact that I could build a lot of different workout experiences with the same game engine. There are of course classic races, you have time trials or TT for short. There are elimination races, where every round the player in last place is removed from the track. There are group rides, where you can score points for saving energy. Guided training rides with a personal trainer. Fun and weird workout games. Fitness tests to help you calibrate the game's difficulty setting to your fitness level. And even a hill climbing level, so I can finally win a mountain stage. While researching different race modes, I came over the most spectacular bike racing competition in the world, Japanese Keirin. The more I learned about this form of bike racing, the clearer it became to me that this sport with its deep traditions should be the foundation for the game's overarching storyline. Although I initially set out to create a fun and unique spin on indoor racing, I was happy that I finally had the general backstory that allowed me to tie the different parts of the game together. I also created short tournament style levels that combine a couple of races into a crazy brutal workout for the more masochistic players. Of course, I also had to add the Keirin races to the game's multiplayer mode so I could challenge my friends to a race. I also gave every player a unique athlete ID they can share with anybody in the world so they can be added to their personal leaderboards. And who knows, maybe one day you will be able to race your favorite cyclist in Startona. Circuit levels are marked with the outline of their track. It's time to evaluate the race mode. One of the major upsides is the fact that the game is super versatile. Strategically crashing into others to win is great fun. Races provide a solid workout, while guided training rides are great to get in shape. These levels also are a great tool to teach somebody the basics of bike racing. On the downside, others crashing into you can really ruin your day. I also feel that the game is most fun when you're racing, and there's only so much racing you can do before you're cooked like a lobster. And lastly, none of the levels provide erg mode. We will do something about it in the next game. Let's see what the kids think. Okay, nice! Once I had my first levels in place, I worked with different professional training experts to put them into effective workouts. During this time, it became quite clear that the game was missing an important feature: erg mode. Erg mode stands for ergometer mode, and it basically means that your trainer controls the resistance of your workout. Adding erg mode support allows me to create professional grade structured levels, so this was a solid proposal. I also added a power profile for each level to make it easier for players to see how hard a workout is going to be and what aspect of their fitness they are going to improve. I really like the idea of a player taking the role of a student at the Japanese Keirin school. Therefore, I felt that it would be cool if the erg mode controller was some kind of a console that the player had in their dorm room, so they could train on their own in the evenings or weekends. For the design of the game's ergometer, I took inspiration from various synthesizers from the 80s. I also wanted to recreate the atmosphere used by some of my favorite electronic music YouTube channels. I'm really pleased with the new ergometer workouts, meaning they're just as horrible as they should be. The game is also really easy to learn since you only need to match the target cadence, while the computer makes sure you always have the correct resistance. While testing my new workouts, I noticed that sometimes it was really quite difficult to complete the last interval, and it was also not that easy to know how many I had left. Therefore, I added a feature to allow you to change the difficulty while the system is running, and added an interval counter. Although this workout is not as unique as some of the games I made earlier, it still feels super rewarding to complete the assigned target power while matching the suggested cadence. Conductor levels are marked with the following icon and are probably one of the most used building blocks in the single player workouts. Let's evaluate the game. I like the fact that players can now take part in structured workouts which are really suited for longer levels. On the downside, I feel that this level offers very little gamification and it can feel quite similar to existing workout apps. Although that might be a good thing. Time to ask the game testers what they think. Okay! For this last game I wanted to create another structured workout, but this time turn the gamification to 11. The original idea behind this level was to create a shooting game where the player needed to pedal to power a turret gun and mow down hordes of zombies. While sketching the game, I decided to drop the zombies and rather add different attackers that would require the player to use different weapons to effectively fight them off. To pick the right weapon, players need to produce the correct amount of power. Overall, I like the result a lot. It has a fun aesthetic with the retro shader that simulates the typical scan lines of an old school CRT screen. The level is also pretty easy to learn, although most beta testers needed to try a few times before they got the hang of it. Let's evaluate. A great thing about this level is that it makes Zone 2 training more engaging. It also helps players to develop an intuition for how hard different resistance levels should feel, and it teaches the relation between power, cadence and gearing. The levels also work really great for players who are just looking for a quick 5 to 10 minute workout. On the downside, it takes a couple of tries to learn the game. There's little variation to set the levels apart. And like in some of the other games, dying cuts your workout short. Okay, this level just has to be a hit with the kids. What do you think? Nice! And this concludes the overview of Startona's initial workout games. Now that the game is finally released, I'm really excited to get back into exploring new workout games for the app. I already have a couple of ideas I'm really excited about. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you want to follow along in the future development of the app. If you have a smart trainer and you're interested in trying the game for yourself, just go to startona.com, create a free account, and say skip when it asks you about creating a subscription. At this point, I would also like to thank Bike Shop for allowing me to use their facilities to make sure that the game is compatible with most smart trainers. Please let me know in the comments if there's any part of the project you would like me to cover in more detail in future videos. I hope to see you soon.